Before you judge me, let me explain. The stroke had left me slower, quieter, but not weaker, though they didn't see it that way. My daughter said housing me was becoming too much, unless I gave her £200,000. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just smiled. I reached into my folder and handed her a single sheet of paper. The one that cut her out of everything. The house, the trust, the future. She thought I was broken, but I had spent my entire life preparing for this betrayal, and she walked right into my trap. The Cheshire rain beats a relentless rhythm against the window pane as I try to take another step with this blasted walking stick. 3 weeks since the stroke, and every movement is still a small battle. A victory when I reach the bathroom unaided. A defeat when the glass of water trembles so violently in my hand that it ends up soaking the front of my dressing gown. Vanessa's house is immaculate, far too perfect. It's a show home from a glossy magazine, where every object has its designated place, and it seems, have become the one jarring element. The intruder who leaves the faint indentations of a rubber ferrule on the plush, cream-colored carpet. Her voice, smooth but with an underlying steel, tells me I really should wear the slippers she bought me. She says it while serving dinner, her eyes fixed not on my face but on my bare feet, as if I've committed a cardinal sin. And I must remember, the physiotherapist said not to drag my feet. I just nod and smile. It's the smile I perfected over 30 years as a headmistress. The one that says, I hear you, while concealing what I'm truly thinking. I'm sorry, my love. Sometimes I forget. Mark, her husband, keeps his gaze firmly on his plate. A master of conflict avoidance, always pretending not to see the quiet drama unfolding before him. Talia, my granddaughter, shoots me a quick, complicit glance before her eyes dart back to the glowing screen of her phone. Dinner unfolds like all the others since my arrival. A shallow stream of conversation about Vanessa's work in real estate, some difficult client, how the economy is affecting the housing market in the Northwest. No one asks how I feel, if I'm in pain, if I miss my independence. When I was raising my children alone after Robert died, I imagined old age would be different. I pictured warmth, respect, maybe even a little admiration for having navigated those turbulent waters by myself, working double shifts so my children could have opportunities one never did. But now, at 71, I feel a chill that has nothing to do with the damp English weather. The first time I heard the word burden was 3 days after I arrived. I was resting in the guest room, my room. Now, when the voices of Vanessa and Mark drifted down the hallway, I didn't mean to listen, but the walls of these modern, new-build houses are surprisingly thin. We can't keep this up, Mark. Between her prescriptions and the appointments, it's costing a fortune. Vanessa's voice was tense, controlled. She's your mother, Ness. What do you expect us to do? I expect her to recognize the sacrifice we're making. This house doesn't pay for itself, and now we have another mouth to feed. Not to mention the time I'm losing taking her to all her appointments. I lay there, motionless, the ache in my chest having nothing to do with the after-effects of the stroke. She has her pension, Mark replied, his voice barely a whisper. And what do you think that covers? Besides, she has savings. Money she's been hoarding for years while we've been breaking our backs with mortgages. It's only fair that she contributes. I closed my eyes, remembering the checks I'd sent for Vanessa's university fees, for the deposit on her first house, for the wedding she wanted with 200 guests and centerpieces of imported orchids. That night, I slept little, wondering if the stroke had been just the beginning of my decline, or if it had also been the start of a revelation. Grandma, I brought you some tea. Talia appears in my doorway, holding a steaming mug. At 17, she is everything Vanessa was not at her age. Thoughtful, observant, generous without expecting anything in return. Sometimes I wonder how such a flower grew in such arid soil. Thank you, my love. How was school today? She perches on the edge of my bed, careful not to jostle the mattress. Another small act of consideration that doesn't go unnoticed. It was good. We're reading 100 Years of Solitude in English Lit. It reminds me of those stories you used to tell me about your childhood. I smile, a genuine one for the first time in days. Garcia Marquez understood something few people do. That families carry their ghosts on their backs for generations. Talia looks at me with those eyes, too old for her young face. Mum's been different since you arrived, she says quietly. I don't understand why she's acting like this. I take a sip of tea to buy myself a moment. How do you explain to a girl that her mother views her grandmother as an investment that didn't yield the expected returns? How do you tell her that love sometimes comes with hidden conditions in the small print? Sometimes people have expectations they don't communicate, I reply finally. And when those expectations aren't met, they feel resentment. But you've always been good to Mum. You paid for her university, helped her with her first house. She knows that. I wonder what else this granddaughter of mine observes when we all think she's absorbed in her phone. Love and money are complicated things when they mix, Talia. But don't you worry about it. I'm fine. Talia. Vanessa's voice cuts through our conversation like a knife. She appears in the doorway, arms crossed over a crisp, silk blouse that probably cost more than my weekly pension. I've told you not to bother your grandmother when she's resting. She's not bothering me, I respond, but Vanessa is already pulling Talia by the arm. She has physiotherapy in half an hour and needs to get ready. Besides, you have homework to do. When they're gone, the silence settles back in like an unwelcome guest. I rise with effort, leaning on my stick, and make my way to the window. The raindrops draw erratic paths on the glass. I wonder if I'll ever walk in the rain again unsupervised, without being treated like a child, without every step being measured and evaluated. The weeks pass, and the tension grows silently, like ivy creeping up the walls. Each day brings new, subtle reminders of my status as a guest. Mom, the hot water isn't free. Your showers shouldn't last more than 5 minutes. Mom, do you really need the heating on in your room? Just put on another jumper. Mom, the special laundry detergent for your clothes costs us double. Each comment is a small splinter under the skin. Each glance a reminder that I am a burden. Today is different. I can feel it from the moment I wake up. There's a different energy in the house, a determination in Vanessa's footsteps as she moves about the kitchen. It's a Sunday. Mark is home, restless, moving from room to room as if seeking refuge from an impending storm. Talia has gone out with friends, likely at Vanessa's suggestion. Mom, we need to talk. Vanessa sits opposite me at the kitchen table. She has folders, papers, a calculator. This isn't a conversation. It's a presentation. Of course, my dear. It's been almost 5 weeks since you came to live with us. She begins opening a folder with meticulous care, and I think it's time we talked about long-term arrangements. I nod, keeping my expression neutral as my heart begins to race. Mark and I have been running the numbers. Between the extra cost of having you here, the time I invest in your medical appointments, the modifications we've had to make to the house, I look around, searching for these supposed modifications. Is she referring to the plastic seat in the shower that I bought with my own money? Or perhaps the support bar that my son, Jacob, installed on the one occasion he visited from Japan? We think it's only fair that you contribute financially to this situation. Mark clears his throat from the kitchen doorway but says nothing. His eyes avoid mine. Of course, I reply, I can increase my monthly contribution. My pension isn't much, but I'm not talking about your pension, Mom, Vanessa interrupts. I'm talking about your savings. I feel the air thicken around me. My savings? We know you have money put away. You've lived frugally your whole life. You had a paid-off house that you sold 5 years ago. That money is somewhere. I stare at her, searching her face for any trace of the little girl I once rocked in my arms. The one who would cry if she saw an injured bird. The one who made me a card when I was promoted to headmistress, writing, "I'm proud of you, Mummy," in crooked letters. Vanessa, what exactly are you asking for? She pushes a piece of paper towards me. It's a detailed list of expenses with figures attached. Food, electricity, water, driving time, emotional strain. Every aspect of my existence in her home has been quantified, measured, and priced. We need £200,000, she says finally, her voice as firm as when she negotiates the sale of a house. It's fair compensation for looking after you, now and in the future. The silence that follows is so dense I could cut it with a knife. And if I don't have that amount? I ask, though I already know the answer. Her eyes harden. Then we'll have to I wake with the first gray light filtering through the curtains. For a moment, the disorientation that accompanies every morning since the stroke takes hold. Where am I? What day is it? Then, like a wave breaking on the shore, the memories of yesterday flood my mind. Vanessa's folder of calculations. Her barely disguised ultimatum. My call to Russell. I glance at the clock. 6:17 a.m. The house is still asleep. Perfect. I sit up slowly, conscious of every protesting muscle. The doctors say I should notice improvements each week, and they're not wrong. My left side is more responsive now, though the hand still trembles when I attempt precise tasks. I dress with deliberate care. Comfortable trousers, a silk mix blouse whose buttons are a small, Daily Triumph, and a light cashmere cardigan. For the morning is cool, even for a Cheshire summer. In the bathroom, I watch myself in the mirror as I brush my silver hair. My face has changed since the stroke. A slight droop on the left side that strangers probably wouldn't notice, but which I see every morning, a constant reminder of my fragility. My eyes, however, remain the same. Direct, clear, determined. Good morning, Irene. I tell my reflection quietly. Today is the day you take your life back. I pick up my phone and send a text to Russell, confirming our 10 a.m. appointment. Then, careful not to make a sound, I pack a small overnight bag with the documents I'll need. The folder from my safe, my passport, the bank card I rarely use. At 7:30, I hear movement in the kitchen. Mark is always the first one up, making coffee before he leaves for his commute to Manchester. I take a deep breath and walk out of my room. Good morning, Mark. I greet him as I enter the kitchen. He startles slightly. He always seems uncomfortable when we're alone, as if afraid of being caught between his loyalty to Vanessa and some residual sense of decency. Irene. Morning. Coffee? Please. As he pours the cup, I notice his eyes avoid mine. I wonder if he knows about yesterday's conversation, about the ultimatum. Of course he knows. They probably discussed it for weeks before Vanessa finally presented it that I have a doctor's appointment today. I comment casually, taking a sip of the coffee. A routine checkup. Does Ness need to take you? I think she has clients this morning. No, I've arranged it. I've booked an Uber. He looks up, surprised. It's the first time I've mentioned doing anything on my own since I arrived. Are you sure? It's no trouble I'm quite sure, Mark. Besides, the doctor's surgery is near Russell Kim's office. I thought I'd pop in to see him afterwards.
Russell Kim?
The solicitor? Yes, I reply, watching his reaction carefully. There are a few matters with my will I want to review. Mark visibly pales, and in that moment I confirm what I already suspected. He not only knows about Vanessa's ultimatum, but he also knows her intentions for my money. Irene, perhaps you should wait until Vanessa is up. I'm sure she'd want to accompany you for something like that. I'm sure she would. I reply with a soft smile. But it won't be necessary. These are simple matters. He barely touches his toast, and as soon as he's finished his coffee, he mumbles something about getting ready for work and escapes upstairs. The Uber arrives punctually. The driver, a kind young man with a gentle smile, helps me with my stick and makes no comment when I ask him to take me into the center of Alderley Edge. The solicitor's building is a handsome Georgian townhouse, all gleaming black paint and polished brass. Russell has done well for himself since I first met him 15 years ago. A young, earnest lawyer just starting out. Irene, he says, rising as I enter his office. He takes both my hands in his. It's good to see you. You too, Russell, though the circumstances could be better. He helps me to a comfortable armchair, taking a seat opposite me, not behind his imposing mahogany desk but beside it, a small gesture that speaks volumes. Your call worried me, he admits. Has it happened? I nod, taking the documents from my bag. I hand him Vanessa's list of expenses first, then the written ultimatum. He examines them, his expression growing graver with each line he reads. £200,000, he murmurs, for looking after her own mother. Apparently, my market value has depreciated over the years. I respond with an irony that fails to hide the sting. Russell sets the papers aside and looks at me directly. Are you certain you want to proceed with the plan we discussed? Once we sign these documents, it will be irreversible. I have alternatives. We could try talking to her, explaining that this could be considered financial abuse of a vulnerable adult. And then what? Live under her roof knowing she only tolerates me for my money? Waiting for the next time she has financial trouble to come for more? Russell nods, acknowledging the truth in my words. Then let's proceed. For the next 2 hours, we review and sign document after document. Each signature is a brick in the wall I am building between my assets and Vanessa's greed. First, the revocation of all powers of attorney I ever granted her. Second, the activation of my living trust, transferring all my property and financial assets into its protection. Third, the modification of the beneficiaries, removing Vanessa completely and naming Talia as the contingent heir, with Russell as trustee until she turns 25. And finally, a detailed letter of instruction on how my finances are to be handled from now on. With this, Russell explains as he signs as a witness on the final document, your pension will still be paid into your current account as normal, enough for your daily expenses. But all your savings, investments, and the proceeds from the sale of your house are now protected within the trust. Vanessa cannot touch them, even if she were to somehow obtain a fraudulent power of attorney. When will she find out? The notification from the bank will arrive in 24 to 48 hours. By then, all the changes will already be in effect. I nod, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sorrow. This is not how I imagined things would end with my daughter. What's your plan now, Irene? Russell asks, gathering the documents into official-looking folders. I can't stay with Vanessa after this. Of course not. But have you thought about where you'll go? I can recommend some excellent assisted living communities. I've already arranged it. I interrupt him. I called Marla. Do you remember her? My friend from university who lives over in Prestbury. I remember her. She came with you when we updated your will 3 years ago. Marla has a spare room. She's always told me I could stay with her if I ever needed to. It seems that time has come. Russell smiles faintly. Always one step ahead, aren't you? When you're a headmistress for 30 years, you learn to prepare for all contingencies. Especially the unpleasant ones. I rise, leaning on my stick. Russell hands me a folder with copies of all the documents we've signed. I'll walk you out, he offers. No need. I have another Uber waiting. It's taking me directly to Marla's. And your things? Your clothes? I have the essentials in this bag. Marla and I will go shopping for whatever else I need tomorrow. What I left at Vanessa's house. Well, consider it my final contribution to her household. Russell looks at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. Irene, if you need anything, I know. And thank you, Russell. Not just for this, I say, gesturing to the documents, but for foreseeing that something like this might happen. I've seen too many cases like yours, he replies gravely. The difference is, most people don't prepare until it's too late. We say our goodbyes at the entrance to the building. The Uber is already waiting, as promised. The driver helps me in, placing my stick and my bag beside me. Where to? He asks. I give him Marla's address in Prestbury. As the car moves through the leafy Cheshire lanes, I look out of the window at the grand houses, the manicured gardens, the faces of strangers passing by. I wonder how many stories like mine are playing out behind those pristine windows, in those immaculate living rooms where appearances matter more than compassion. My phone vibrates. It's a message from Vanessa. Mom, where are you? Mark said you went out. You should have told me. I don't reply. Instead, I find Marla's contact and type a message. I'm on my way. It's all done. Her reply is immediate. The bed is made, the kettle is on, and there's enough space here for you to take all the steps you need. I smile as I put the phone away. Marla always understood what space meant to me. Not just the physical, but the space to breathe, to exist without apology, to be valued for who I am and not for what I can provide. The Uber pulls up in front of a charming, wisteria-covered cottage. Marla is already on the doorstep, waiting for me. Welcome home, Irene, she says, hugging me tightly but carefully. Thank you for this, I whisper against her shoulder. There's nothing to thank me for. You'd have done the same for me. My phone vibrates again in my pocket. I don't need to check it to know it's Vanessa, probably more insistent now. But that conversation will have to wait. For the first time in weeks, Marla's house feels as though it has absorbed decades of laughter and conversation. Books are stacked on every available surface. Forgotten teacups nestle between marked pages. And framed photographs tell silent stories from mantelpieces and side tables. It is the polar opposite of Vanessa's sterile minimalism. We are sitting in her cozy kitchen, sipping chamomile tea as the evening sun paints the walls in shades of gold. Marla has prepared a simple supper: vegetable soup, fresh bread, and a soft cheese that requires little effort to chew. Small considerations, the kind that aren't announced as sacrifices. So she says, after a comfortable silence, how do you think she'll react? She doesn't need to specify who. We both know. With fury, I reply, turning the warm mug between my hands. First with disbelief, then with indignation, and finally with pure, unadulterated rage. Are you afraid? I consider the question for a moment. Not of Vanessa, not physically. But I am afraid of facing the reality that my own daughter sees me as a means to an end. Marla nods, her blue eyes, still sharp despite her years, watching me with understanding. We have been friends for over 50 years. She was there when I was widowed at 32, when I had to raise 2 children on a teacher's salary, when I finally earned my doctorate while working full-time. My phone, which has been vibrating intermittently since my arrival, begins to ring with insistence. Vanessa's name flashes on the screen. Do you want to answer that? Marla asks. I shake my head. Not yet. First, I need to rest. As if in response to my thoughts, the phone falls silent. A minute later, a text message arrives. Mom, I'm worried sick. Where are you? Mark said you mentioned seeing Russell. Please call me immediately. I switch the phone off and place it in my cardigan pocket. Tomorrow, I say, more to myself than to Marla. Tomorrow will be soon enough. The room Marla has prepared for me is small but welcoming. A single bed with a handmade patchwork quilt, a dark wood chest of drawers with an antique mirror, and a window that looks out onto the back garden, where an old apple tree spreads its branches like protective arms. I sleep better than I have in weeks, free from the constant feeling of being an intruder, of having to measure every word, every movement, every need. I wake to the aroma of coffee and the sound of Marla humming in the kitchen. For a moment I'm disoriented, but then I remember where I am, and why. A sense of peace washes over me, despite knowing the storm is about to break as we eat our breakfast. I switch my phone back on. As expected, there is a flood of notifications. 12 missed calls, 23 text messages, and 5 emails, all from Vanessa. The most recent, sent at 6:43 a.m. today, reads, Mom, I don't know what's going on, but something is wrong with my credit cards. They're saying the mortgage payment didn't go through. Do you know anything about this? What did you say to Russell? I need to talk to you now. So, it has begun. Russell warned me the banks would act quickly once the documents were processed. The transfer of my assets to the trust has cut off Vanessa's access to accounts she had apparently been using for her own expenses. Accounts she should never have had access to. Just as we finish breakfast, the doorbell rings. Marla and I exchange a look. Were you expecting someone? Ask. She shakes her head, rising to peer through the side window. Her expression hardens. It's Vanessa. My heart quickens, but I force myself to remain calm. How did she know where I was? She's probably called every one of your acquaintances. Pressbury isn't that big, and she was always persistent. The doorbell rings again, this time accompanied by loud, insistent knocking. Do you want me to make her go away? Marla offers, and from her tone, I know she is perfectly capable of doing just that. I take a deep breath. No, I have to face this sooner or later. Better now, on neutral ground. I walk slowly to the door, leaning on my stick more for emotional stability than physical. When I open it, Vanessa stands there, her face blotchy with rage, her normally perfect hair disheveled as if she's been running her hands through it repeatedly. Mom, what the hell is going on? She demands, trying to push past me, but I hold my ground in the doorway. Good morning, Vanessa, I reply calmly. Please lower your voice. Marla's neighbors don't need to be part of this. Part of what? Of my mother disappearing without a word and then all my accounts start bouncing? Of the bank telling me I no longer have access to anything? What did you do? I protected myself, I reply simply. Just as you forced me to do when you presented me with your ultimatum. Her face pales for a moment, then flushes an even deeper red. Ultimatum? What are you talking about? I was just asking you to contribute to your own care. It's only fair. £200,000 is not a contribution, Vanessa. It's extortion. That's ridiculous. You're confused. The stroke has obviously affected your judgment. That's why I need those powers of attorney, to protect you from— My doctor disagrees. I interrupt, my voice quiet but firm. In fact, I have certified documentation that my mental capacity is perfectly sound. The same documentation that Russell filed along with the revocation of your powers of attorney and the activation of my trust. I watch her process this information, her mind rapidly calculating the implications. Suddenly, her expression shifts. The mask of feigned concern vanishes, revealing the raw anger beneath. You took everything from me. After all I've done for you. All you've done for me? I repeat, disbelief seeping into my voice. Vanessa, you gave me a roof over my head for 5 weeks and made me feel like a burden every single day. You threatened to have me put in a home if I didn't give you £200,000. What did you expect me to do? I expected you to be reasonable. We have expenses, a mortgage, Talia's university next year. That money should be for the family. That money is the result of decades of hard work and sacrifice. Sacrifices I made to give you a good life, to send you to university, to help you with the deposit on your first house. And now that I am the one who needs support, you ask me to give you everything I have left. Vanessa takes a step back, as if I've slapped her. For a moment, I see a flicker of shame in her eyes, but it's quickly replaced by something harder, more calculating. This isn't over, she says, her voice low and threatening. I'll call my solicitor. I will prove that you are not of sound mind. I'll get back what's mine. None of that money is yours, Vanessa. It was never promised to you, never owed to you. I'm your daughter. Yes, I reply, a profound sadness washing over me. You are my daughter. And that should have meant you valued me for who I am, not for what you could get from me. I see her hands are trembling by her sides. She takes another step back. You'll regret this, she warns. And when you come crawling back because Marla gets tired of looking after you, you'll find the door locked. Goodbye, Vanessa, I say softly, beginning to close the door. Wait, she exclaims suddenly. What about Talia? Does she know about this? The question catches me off guard. I haven't spoken to Talia yet. A calculating smirk appears on Vanessa's face. Good. Because when she finds out what you've done, how you've betrayed our family, she'll choose a side. And it won't be yours. With that final threat, she turns and storms back to her car. I close the door and lean against it, suddenly exhausted. Marla appears at my side, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Are you all right? I will be, I reply, straightening up. But I think this is only the beginning. The afternoon passes in a tense quiet. Marla and I go out to buy essentials. The normality of the activity, choosing blouses, comparing prices, is strangely comforting. As we return, my phone rings again. It's a number I don't recognize. I answer cautiously. Hello? Mrs. Whitmore? My name is Lawrence Bennett, from Bennett and Associates. I'm representing your daughter, Vanessa Whitmore Jensen. My heart sinks, but I keep my voice steady. I see. Mr. Bennett, I interrupt. Any and all legal matters concerning my estate are handled by my solicitor, Russell Kim. If you have any questions, please direct them to him. There is a pause. Mrs. Whitmore, it would be in everyone's best interest if we could resolve this amicably. I agree, and I have already made my amicable decision. If your client has a problem with that, as I said, she can speak to my solicitor. I hang up before he can reply. When we get home, there is an unfamiliar car parked outside. I brace myself for another confrontation, but then I recognize the figure sitting on the porch steps. Talia. She gets up as she sees us, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She is clutching a piece of paper. I recognize the letterhead. It's a copy of the revocation notice Russell prepared. "Grandma," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "What's going on?" I look at 2 weeks have passed since my encounter with Talia on Marla's front steps. 2 weeks of a tense, simmering silence, punctuated only by the occasional aggressive text from Vanessa and a formal, jargon-filled letter from her solicitor, which I passed directly to Russell. He assures me that legally, I am protected, that the trust is ironclad. Still, the silence from Talia weighs on me like a persistent fog. This morning, as I am helping Marla deadhead the roses in her back garden, my phone vibrates in my apron pocket. I almost ignore it, assuming it's another salvo from Vanessa's camp, but something prompts me to check. It's a text from Talia. *, can I see you today? After school? *, my heart gives a hopeful lurch. I reply immediately. *, of course. I'll be waiting. Marla notices my expression. Good news? Talia is coming to visit. Her face lights up. That's wonderful, Irene. Yes, I reply, though a familiar anxiety settles in my chest. Is she coming to reconcile, or as an emissary for Vanessa? It doesn't matter, I tell myself. She is my granddaughter, and I will welcome her with open arms, regardless of the reason. The rest of the morning is spent in a flurry of preparation. Not that the house needs it. Marla keeps everything immaculate, but I need to occupy my hands to still my racing thoughts. I bake oat and raisin biscuits, Talia's favorite since she was a little girl. I rearrange the books in the guest room, now my room. I change the water in the vase of freesias on the kitchen table. At 3:45, the doorbell rings. I take a deep breath before opening the door. Talia stands there, her school rucksack slung over one shoulder. She looks tired, her shoulders slumped. But when she sees me, a small, genuine smile touches her lips. "Hi, Grandma." "Talia," I say, pulling her into a hug. She responds with a surprising intensity. "Come in, my love. I've just made biscuits." I lead her to the kitchen, where Marla has already set out tea and arranged the biscuits on a plate. After a brief, warm greeting, Marla discreetly announces she has to run to her book club, giving us our privacy. Once we are alone, Talia seems to visibly relax. She takes a biscuit and bites into it, closing her eyes for a moment. "They taste the same," she says softly. "Exactly like you used to make when I'd come to your house after school. The same recipe. Some things don't need to change." We eat in silence for a few minutes, the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall marking the time. Finally, Talia puts down her cup and looks at me directly. "Things at home are bad." I nod, waiting for her to continue. "Mum is obsessed with getting access to your accounts. She's on the phone with solicitors all the time. Dad is barely home. I think he can't stand the tension. And She stops, her voice cracking slightly. I feel trapped in the middle of it all. I reach across the table and take her hand. "I'm so sorry, Talia. I never wanted you to be caught up in this." "It's not your fault," she replies, with a firmness that surprises me. "I've been thinking a lot, these last 2 weeks, remembering things. How Mum always talked about Grandma's house, as if it was a possession that would eventually be hers. How she counted on your money for things like our holidays or the kitchen renovation." I remain silent, allowing her to process her thoughts. "I found something else," she continues, opening her rucksack. She pulls out a well-worn folder. "I was looking through Mum's desk, trying to understand what was going on. I found this." She opens the folder and shows me the contents. They are bank statements, but not from Vanessa and Mark's normal accounts. They are from an account in my name, but with Vanessa as a co-signatory. An account I never opened. "I don't understand," I say, studying the documents. "I never authorized this." "I know," Talia replies, her voice barely a whisper. "Look at the signature." I look closer and see my supposed signature on the account opening documents. It's a convincing imitation, but it is definitely not my handwriting. "She forged my signature," I murmur, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "For how long has she been doing this?" "From what I can tell, for about 3 years. Shortly after you sold your house." I close my eyes, trying to absorb this fresh betrayal. It wasn't just that Vanessa wanted my money now. She had been systematically planning to appropriate it for years. Why are you showing me this, Talia? I ask finally, though I think I know the answer. Because I needed you to know that I believe you. That I understand why you did what you did. She pauses, taking a deep breath. And because I need your help. My help? Her eyes fill with tears. I can't live there anymore, Grandma. Not after seeing all this. Not after hearing her talk about you as if you were just walking money. I want to move in with you, if that's possible. My heart stops for a second before starting to race. Talia, you're a minor. Your mother has legal custody. I know, but I'm 18 in 5 months. And in the meantime, maybe we could talk to a solicitor? See if there are options? I look at her, this young woman who has grown up so fast, who has had to face such hard truths at an age when she should be worrying about school dances and exams. Have you talked to your mother about how you feel? Talia shakes her head. Every time I try, she just changes the subject, or tells me I don't understand adult matters. And when I mentioned wanting to visit you, she just exploded. Said you were manipulating me. I will talk to Russell. I say finally. We'll see what our options are. In the meantime, you are always welcome here, for as long as you need. Talia smiles through her tears. Thank you, Grandma. We move to the living room, where we pull out the old photo albums I brought with me. We spend the afternoon looking through pictures. Vanessa and Jacob as toddlers. A younger me with Robert before he got sick. Talia as a newborn in my arms. We were happy then, weren't we? Talia asks, pointing to a Christmas photo where Vanessa is smiling, holding a baby Talia next to the tree. We were, I confirm. And we can be happy again. In different ways. 3 days later, Russell greets us in his office. He agreed to meet with both of us to discuss the options. Legally, he begins, it's complicated. Talia is a minor for a few more months, and her mother has custody. Without cause that constitutes neglect or abuse by the legal definition, it would be difficult to change that. Talia slumps slightly in her chair. However, Russell continues, there are a few avenues. First, Talia could apply for legal emancipation. Given that she's close to 18 and can demonstrate maturity and self-sufficiency, it could be viable. The second option is a temporary custody agreement. It would require Vanessa to sign, which, given the current situation, seems unlikely. She'll never sign, Talia murmurs. Probably not, Russell concedes. Which brings us to the third option. Simply wait. Talia will be 18 soon. In the meantime, she can spend as much time with you, Irene, as she wants, as long as her mother doesn't file a formal legal objection. And if she does? Ask. Then we would have to respond legally. But honestly, I doubt Vanessa will want to open that door. The documentation Talia found, the fraudulent account with your forged signature, is a serious crime. If that were to come out during a custody proceeding, Vanessa could face criminal charges. I suggest this, says Russell. Talia continues to officially live with her mother, but spends as much time as she likes with you. Irene, keep a low profile. In a few months, when you turn 18, you can make your own legal decision. And my university? Talia asks. Mom is threatening not to sign the financial aid forms if I keep seeing you. Russell smiles for the first time. Fortunately, Irene has already thought of that. The trust includes specific provisions for your education. You won't need Vanessa's signature to access those funds once you're 18. As we leave Russell's office, Talia seems lighter. Would you like to go to the library? Ask. There's a series of talks on Latin American literature starting this afternoon. Her eyes light up, like Garcia Marquez. The very same, I smile. I thought it might interest you. I'd love that. As we walk towards the library, I feel a connection that transcends blood and genes. It's a bond forged by choices, by mutual recognition, by a kind of love that doesn't demand or manipulate. After the talk, as we sit in the library cafe, Talia looks at me thoughtfully. You know what's been bothering me? I never understood why Mom always seemed so resentful of you. Even before all this, there was always a tension. I think I reply finally, she always felt she was owed more. When your grandfather died, I had to work long hours. I wasn't always present. And Vanessa, being older, often felt she had to grow up too fast. But that wasn't your fault, Talia protests. No, But children don't always see that. Sometimes those feelings of resentment take root and grow. I think by the time Vanessa was an adult, she had built this narrative where I was always in her debt. The Cheshire County Court building stands imposing against the gray sky, its stone columns and majestic steps designed to intimidate. As I ascend, leaning on my stick more firmly than usual, I feel the weight of what is to come. Russell walks beside me, his presence a quiet reassurance. Behind us are Marla and, surprisingly, Dr. Karim, who insisted on attending personally when he heard about the hearing. "Are you ready?" Russell asks as we pause on the top step. "As ready as I can be to face my own daughter in a court of law," I reply, the attempt at a joke falling flat. 3 weeks of meticulous preparation have passed since I received the legal notice. Talia has been torn during this time, spending every free moment with me but returning to Vanessa's house at night. She promised to come today, though I told her it wasn't necessary. "I'll be there," she insisted. "I need to see this for myself." We enter the designated courtroom. On the front bench sits Vanessa, impeccably dressed as always, her dark gray suit and white silk blouse screaming professionalism and respectability. Mark, beside her, looks uncomfortable in his own suit. Neither of them looks at me as I enter. We take our seats on the opposite side of the room. The side door opens, and Talia enters silently. She is dressed simply, in a navy blue dress, her hair pulled back. Our eyes meet, and she gives me a small, brave smile before taking a seat in the back row, equidistant between Vanessa and me. "All rise," the clerk announces. The Honorable Judge Eleanor Ramirez presides. Judge Ramirez, a woman in her 60s with a commanding presence, takes her seat. Case number 24 CB32, Whitmore Jensen versus Whitmore, she declares. "I understand this is a petition to invalidate a living trust based on allegations of diminished mental capacity and undue influence. Is that correct?" "That is correct, Your Honor," Vanessa's solicitor, Mr. Bennett, responds, rising to his feet. "We represent Vanessa Whitmore Jensen, who seeks to protect the interests of her mother, Irene Whitmore, who we believe has been manipulated into transferring her assets into a trust that leaves her vulnerable." I almost laugh at the audacity, but I keep my expression neutral. Russell stands. "Your Honor, Russell Kim, representing Irene Whitmore. The allegations are entirely without merit. Mrs. Whitmore is of perfectly sound mind, as we will demonstrate today, and the trust was established precisely to protect her from the financial exploitation she was experiencing. What follows is a masterful performance of distortion and half-truths. Bennett paints Vanessa as the devoted daughter who sacrificed her time and resources to care for an ailing mother, only to find that said mother had been manipulated by outside elements. A clear reference to Russell, into financially cutting off her family. He presents selected medical records from my stroke, emphasizing the worst moments of my recovery. Vanessa takes the stand, her voice trembling as she speaks of welcoming me into her home without hesitation, of rearranging her professional life to attend to my needs. And then, without warning, my mother disappeared. She says, carefully controlled tears in her eyes. We discovered she had transferred all her assets to an inaccessible trust, leaving us not only with outstanding medical debts but with the emotional burden of her abandonment. When it is Russell's turn to cross-examine, his approach is precise and calm. "Mrs. Whitmore Jensen, could you tell us the exact date your mother's living trust was originally established?" Vanessa blinks, clearly not expecting this question. "I'm not sure of the exact date. Allow me to refresh your memory. The trust was established 5 years ago, long before your mother's stroke. Were you aware of this?" "No, she never mentioned it." "And were you aware that the documents to activate the trust were prepared 3 years ago, again long before her stroke?" Vanessa glances at Bennett, who gives an imperceptible nod. "No, I was not aware." Russell continues. "Mrs. Whitmore Jensen, could you tell us why you requested £200,000 from your mother as a condition of her continued residence in your home?" Vanessa's face pales. "That is an unfair characterization. I was simply asking her to contribute to the household expenses. I have here a detailed list of expenses you presented to your mother. It includes items such as emotional strain, valued at £20,000, and loss of privacy at £15,000. Are these normal contributions to household expenses? A murmur ripples through the courtroom. When it is our turn to present evidence, Russell is methodical. First, he calls Dr. Karim, who testifies to my full mental capacity, presenting assessments conducted both before and after the activation of the trust. In my professional opinion, Dr. Karim concludes, Mrs. Whitmore is fully capable of making complex financial and legal decisions. Her stroke did not significantly impact her cognitive functions. Russell presents the complete timeline of the trust, demonstrating it was part of a carefully considered estate planning strategy over many years, not an impulsive decision made under duress. Then, in a move that surprises me, he calls Marla to the stand. Mrs. Bunce, how long have you known Irene Whitmore? Russell asks. 52 years, Marla replies. We met at university. And during these 52 years, have you had occasion to observe the relationship between Irene and her daughter Vanessa? Yes. Since Vanessa was a child. Could you describe that relationship for the court? Marla looks at me briefly before answering. Irene has always been extremely generous with Vanessa. She paid for her university education in full, helped with the deposit on her first house, contributed significantly to her wedding. In return, Vanessa always seemed to expect more. Objection. Bennett interrupts. Speculative. I will rephrase, Russell says smoothly. Mrs. Bunce, did Irene ever express concerns to you about Vanessa's attitude towards her finances? Yes. Many times over the years. I was with her when she updated her trust 3 years ago, specifically because she was worried about the financial pressure Vanessa was exerting. Finally, it is my turn to testify. As I approach the stand, I feel all eyes on me. I sit and look directly at Judge Ramirez, deliberately ignoring Vanessa's gaze. Mrs. Whitmore, Russell begins gently. Could you tell us why you established this living trust? I established it originally as part of my estate planning after I sold my house. I wanted to ensure my assets were protected and distributed according to my wishes. I updated it 3 years ago when I began to notice worrying patterns in Vanessa's behavior towards my finances. And what led you to activate the trust recently? I take a deep breath. After my stroke, I moved in temporarily with Vanessa for my recovery. During those weeks, it became increasingly clear that she viewed me as a source of income, not as a mother who needed support. It all culminated when she presented me with a list of expenses and demanded £200,000, with the implicit threat that if I did not pay, I would have to leave. Did you have any reason to believe you were at risk of financial exploitation? Yes. In addition to the demand for money, I have recently discovered that Vanessa had been forging my signature on bank documents for years, giving herself access to accounts I had not authorized. A gasp goes through the room. Judge Ramirez looks up, surprised. Do you have evidence of this allegation, Mr. Kim? She asks. Yes, Your Honor, Russell replies, presenting the documents Talia had found. These were discovered recently. They show an account established in Mrs. Whitmore's name, but with Mrs. Whitmore Jensen as a co-signatory, using a forged signature. Bennett is on his feet. Objection, Your Honor. These documents were not part of the pretrial discovery. They were discovered after the petition was filed, Russell explains. They are directly relevant to demonstrating why Mrs. Whitmore had a legitimate reason to protect her assets. The judge examines the documents. I'll allow it. Proceed. Mr. Kim. Bennett's cross-examination is aggressive. He tries to make me seem confused, manipulated, condescendingly referring to me as a vulnerable elderly woman. I maintain my composure, answering with clarity and precision. Mrs. Whitmore, he says finally, his frustration evident, isn't it true that Mr. Kim has convinced you that your daughter, who only ever wanted what was best for you, was somehow exploiting you? Mr. Bennett, I reply, looking him directly in the eye, I was a headmistress for 20 years. I have managed budgets, staff, and crises. I have made difficult decisions that affected the lives of hundreds of students and teachers. No one convinces me of anything. I observe, I assess, and I decide for myself. I pause, then continue. When my daughter presented me with a bill for £200,000 for the privilege of recovering in her home, I made an informed, deliberate decision to protect myself. It was not impulsive, it was not the result of manipulation, and it was certainly not the product of diminished mental capacity. Bennett has no further questions after that.